Lead and Empower Her with Dr. Julie Ducharme, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Lead and Empower Her with Dr. Julie Ducharme is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Dr. Julie Ducharme.
Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Ducharme, and welcome to the She CEO Talks. I love this podcast because this is a chance where I get to talk with women around the world doing amazing things in their industry. And we talk about how we as women are making change and what we do that's unique. Before we get started, I want to make a couple shout outs to some of our sponsors. As you guys know, we have the Women Gone Wild She Talks happening June 17th in Huntington Beach at the Huntington Club. We still have some tickets left, so if you haven't got a chance to get a ticket, jump in there and grab one. Now, here's the cool thing. If you're like, hey, I can't make it, or I don't live close, we have a really cool opportunity for you. Joe DeSena, who is the sponsor of Spartan Races, has donated to us 300 tickets for Spartan Race. So what that means is if you go in and you do $100 deposit, you will get a link to claim your Spartan Race ticket. Now, if you say, you know, Julie, I'm not really a racer, guess what? That's okay. You can donate it or give it to someone else. You can gift it to someone. There are so many people who want these Spartan tickets, and they're usually a lot more expensive than $100. So if you're finding a way that you want to make a difference and support women veterans, this is a great way to do that. And you can always message me to find out more information. But a huge shout out to Joe DeSena for making the donation to us. We're really excited about that. So make sure you check out our Women Gone Wild She Talks and find out how you can be involved in a part of it, and keep an eye out because we have these happening all over the nation. So you can go to leadandempower.com to catch our tour dates. All right, so let's get started today. I'm really excited because today we have with us Barbie Layton. She has been seen in Forbes, USA Today, Goss, and many other publications, and is scientifically verified quantum healer, executive coach, international best-selling author, TV show host of You Are Amazing, speaker that works with CEOs, elite athletes, and individuals to help them re-fall in love with themselves, reanimate their dreams, and become the VIP of their own lives. She is an international best-selling author in the smash franchise Women Gone Wild, where you see this amazing book right here we'll talk about, where she was on 4 billboards in the New York Times Square in 2022. She now works as a leader of leaders to help shift organizations to optimize their harmony and increase their monetization. She has been on multiple platforms and stage with some of the top names in personal growth and development industry, and will be featured in 3 upcoming books. Just filmed a movie for Amazon Prime and another film coming out at the end of the year. Barbie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, it's so great to be here.
I know. And I know there's a long list of more awards because I've been on your website and your LinkedIn. So it's such a pleasure to have you here. And I have to ask you, because I see you are a verified quantum healer, which now I'm thinking about my friend who just wrote a book about something similar that I'm like, I need to connect you with him.
Awesome.
It's about bringing your miracles to life through this, which I'm by no means like, you know this way better than me. So this is really intriguing to me. I love that you talk about helping people re-fall in love with themselves and reanimate their dreams. So I'm excited to dive into this. But before we get too far, I know a lot of our listeners don't know you, and so we want to get to know you. So can you give us some of your backstory about how this came about?
So in my chapter that I wrote about in Women Gone Wild, I talked about, the chapter was called From Tragedy to Triumph. So I've always been gifted, always been somebody that had a lot of different gifts, but it's the kind of thing of where it's like having a driver's license or having skills. We have absolutely no idea how to be able to run those. So it was something that I really needed to step into that space of learning from great masters all over the world as to how to tap into my innate gifts. And having a chronic illness that kind of sidelined me from all the traveling that I was doing around the world and all the cool things that I was doing in 2016 was kind of like my own personal pandemic, where I just, was like work and come home and be in pain at all times. And I've had 5 near-death experiences, and that was one of those that was very close to that. In 2012, I had E. coli poisoning that they said most people within an hour, they're dead from that. And I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. So these are the things of we're talking about miracles. Sometimes you know that your purpose and your mission is not finished because you still are there. And I literally had the opportunity in 2020 and 2021 to practice with some of the best healers in the world via virtual. But we did energy medicine because that is just as real and as viable because you tap into the quantum field. And I ended up having this global reputation of where I didn't have social media. I just joined Instagram this February. Literally, it's like that really wasn't my world. But I have people from Poland or Australia, and they would say, "Oh, your picture came into my face, and I know that my friend has this problem, and I know you're the only person that can help." And it was such a truly a great honor that everything was basically just by word of mouth. And then fast forward, I've had clients from all over the world and had the opportunity to literally make miracles in their lives, but I use something very different. And with your friend that you're talking about, this might be intriguing for him. I use something called a biofield imaging. And so my clients, they send me photographs of them before and after the session. And so I can literally look at the pinpoints of the places where there's disharmony in the energetic field and the physical body. And then when that person takes the picture 30 minutes after the session and everything's cleared and it's all going to like a green aquamarine and energy, it's absolutely amazing because it's quantitative proof that what just happened via virtual, even on a phone, I don't even need to see them. I don't even need to see their physical body. I just tune into their energetic field. And I was scientifically proven last month with the Amazon Prime movie by Dr. Glenn Ryan, who's done LifeWave and a lot of other things. And he's done healers for the last 25 years. And he said that he did a cheek swab with DNA prior to a session and after, and my effectiveness was 93.9%. That electromagnetic currency had actually moved in the DNA of my client. And he said the highest he'd ever seen had been 65%. So that actual scientific verification is like, I already knew what I could do, but it's like to be of service to other people and to be able to be a channel, to be able to help other people with their healing and manifestations is, to me, one of the best gifts that I can serve the world with.
Yeah, so I definitely connect you. His name's Dr. Larry Farwell, and he wrote the book, The Science of Creating Miracles.
Awesome.
And I'm a really logical person. And so whenever I hear, things like that, I get skeptical, right? Because just being in science myself and doing all this research. So I read the book and I found it really, really interesting how he scientifically proved like what you're talking about. And it was really interesting. So I'm going to have to connect you guys because you guys will totally just like geek out on it together. I know you will. So that's really interesting. And I love that stuff that is verified by science. So, but you do a lot of things besides just that. I see you have a show. You're obviously an author. You're working with people. Tell us a little bit about that and those areas.
Well, I did a traditional job for over a couple of decades. And when the pandemic hit, I just literally saw that there was an opportunity to be able to really hone in on doing something great or doing what a lot of people did of where you were just going to watch Netflix and chill and do whatever you're going to do to distract yourself. So I threw myself wholeheartedly into the Mind Valley community. I was blessed to have Vishen Lakhiani as my personal coach. We had a group coaching with him, and it was the wild, wild west. Like anything went. We were just trying to figure it out in 2020. But from there, it's like being exposed to all of these amazing entrepreneurs and different people. I opened myself up to things that I hadn't even considered ever. And that's why, to me, like even when I speak at the She Talks event on Saturday, it's following that intuition of where you get those little breadcrumbs of little signs and synchronicities that tell you what to do. And so from there, Naveen Jain was one of my mentors who works with SpaceX with Elon Musk, and he's one of the Mind Valley authors. And he was so generous with his time. And he was like my first guest on the TV show in 2021, but he has this concept of boldness in the sense of where it's like, I believe truly that if you take intuition with boldness, the universe will conspire to be able to bring you whatever it is that is your next step, but it's getting out of what you were just talking about, that logical mental brain of like, well, I'm a this, I'm a that. We have these whole things about where our career is our definition as to who and what we are, but when we break those boxes open, we open ourselves to all sorts of things. So, I mean, as you know, I just delivered a product line that I've never ever done in my entire life. That just literally was manifested this year. And then with the TV show came from in 2020. The first virtual expos were happening. And I did a whole talk on extreme gratitude of blessing your toilet, your stove, your refrigerator, your shower for bringing water, the people who are working at the electric company, keeping your lights on, the internet company, all these different people that are faceless and nameless to you, but they're doing all these things to be able to make your life thrive. And when that happened, I got all of this fan mail from people who said, oh my God, that right there of gratitude stacking literally saved my life, because everyone was freaking out at that time. It was like, oh, it was just like everywhere it was fear, 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 fear. And to have something where it's like, okay, no, I have 15 things that are supporting me, and then I have family that loves me, and I have pets, and I'm safe, and I'm in a warm bed. And, it's those kind of things where we take those for granted. But once you don't take them for granted and you look around at that, then all of these beautiful things start to happen. And I feel like childlike wonder and suspending disbelief, when you act from a place of almost being like a 5-year-old at Christmas on a regular basis, bringing that joy brings those manifestations to you, because you have to resonate at a certain frequency. And here's the science part again. The solfeggio frequencies are 528 hertz is the tone that I use the most. And that is the DNA love and creativity tone. And when you stay in that focus and you recalibrate your energy on a regular basis with gratitude and those love energies, it's almost like you're literally magnetizing all sorts of amazing things to yourself that you would never even have thought possible. But you stay open-minded to whatever is being shown in front of you, and then you say yes to whatever the universe provides.
Yeah, and you said a few things that really resonated with me. One, where you were talking about leaving your job, that you had worked a traditional job for a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember myself doing this probably about, I think, close to 13 years ago now, and seeing, like you, that this just wasn't my path anymore. And there was a lot of toxics in it as well. But I do remember it was really terrifying to walk away from something that, despite being toxic to me, I knew, and it was a for sure paycheck. And so when you switched over, maybe you can get some tips to some of our other women who may be in this spot right now thinking, gosh, I'm in this toxic job. Oh, I see Barbie talking about this amazing, like, I want to do that. What would be some steps or tips that you could give them that helped you transition from that, regular job into what you're doing now?
Well, I would say one of the most important things is to start small, because we also don't want to have that hubris as a human of just saying like, oh, I'm just going to jump. Some people leap off a cliff and they're fine. But for me, that wasn't how I wanted to do that. I was also wanted to have the practical aspect to it with the, out there metaphysical 5D type of a reality as well. So I know that my mentor, Vishen Lakiani, talked about the fact that if you start small, you can start a little entrepreneurial business. You can have something on, like, you can do an Etsy, you can do an Amazon, you can do something that's a passion for you. But when you find kind of your niche or whatever it is that is kind of your passion, it's almost like those things will start to expand. And the things that start to expand, that you kind of like, you like lean into. But it's like, even with all the things that I talk about, one of the things in my course is gamification. I did all these experiments it was so fun. We did, during the pandemic, we did all these experiments with packages. And I had people in the UK and in Florida that we did experiments of where we literally, I sent love into the package. Back then, so many things, nobody was getting their packages, customs was holding things up, etc. And the other person on the other end would send love back to the package too. We would just send this energetic frequency and say, what would it take for it to get really, really fastly delivered? And then the next thing you know, like, I know that my friend he and I were talking on the phone, and the next thing you got a knock on the door, and it was like, here's your package, and it hadn't even gone into the, I don't know, whatever you call it, the tracking system. So by doing those experiments over and over and over again, we started small. It's something where it's really, really important to start small. And once you've built that muscle, intuition is the same thing. Intuition is also a muscle. You have to trust the fact that, I'm looking for this extra $500 this month. What would it take for something unexpected to be able to bring that $500 to me? But then from there, you can go to 1,000. But you never, ever, ever go where your basics are. You always make sure your mortgage is covered. You make sure all of your basic expenses are covered. And then anything that's extra, you can play with that as much as you want. But anything before that, I still think there's the pragmatic attitude, because it allows you to stretch rather than feeling like you're going into like this terror, ice cold water in your veins, because you're just like, oh my God, what did I do? Because some people have to be very intentional with their words. Some people wish, like, I wish I could quit my job, or my job sucks, et cetera, and then they get fired, or they have an illness or something happens to that too, it's important to say, I would love to be able to quit this job knowing that I am financially secure and that I have everything that I need to transition into the new space. It's a completely different space of coming from that, because it's all that our words are so powerful. And I learned that the word spelling is basically putting spells out into the world. It's like you're literally saying that too. And that's also where I always really believe too, that integrity and saying what you mean and meaning what you say and keeping your word is also a very, very important thing, of where that builds rapport, whatever you call the universe, that rapport where the universe knows that they can count on you. And when those opportunities come forward and you say yes to them, you get bigger and better ones. I mean, even look at what's happening right now with the wild universe. I mean, it's just like amazing. And now we're collaborating with you guys, where it's like now there's Women Gone Wild and She Talks coming together. And that's, that's so exciting, because it's like, it just becomes this blossom of abundance of where everyone's like, yeah, let's get on board this amazing thing, because everybody wants to share it. And that's really, really special.
Yeah. And you hit on some really good points. I remember when I was transitioning out, that was the same thing. As I was like, okay, how do I, as some of my very good friends say, have my dimes in place, right? Got my dimes in place so I can cover basics. So then that way I can go and just like you're saying, reach out and start to build that new dream or that life, as you talk about, like reanimating your dreams and re-falling in love with yourself. I remember I was so stressed in such a hostile environment. I was literally, my hair was falling out, and I wasn't healthy because it was so toxic. And, that move was tough, because it was like, well, it's toxic, but I'm good at it and I can get a paycheck. And that was a big step. And I think the next step, a lot of times, obviously, is you've seen a lot of success over the last several years that we were just reading about. And I think that's the next step, is that like a lot of women, they lack the, what do I want to say? How they look at themselves with not as much worth as they should. They lack that. And so a lot of times I think that's another aspect when they're stepping into a little bit more of an unknown area, right? Like, oh, how do I have enough worth to do this? Am I good enough to do this? And people always ask me, oh, how do you do it, Julie? And I'm like, well, I just kind of had this rule, like, just try. If you fail, you fail. Fine. Just get over that and go to the next thing. But what would be maybe some tips that you can give, especially in the being a quantum healer and, having such intuition, which you're going to talk about at our event? Would you say it's good advice to follow your intuition as a woman?
Yes, and that's the part about being able to figure out how to stretch into it. I mean, even considerations of trying to figure out what some of the different, things that I participated in. It's like, do I go into debt for this, or do I just pass on it because I can't afford it or whatever else? And what I found was the fact that when I was doing manifestation exercises over 2020 and 2021, when I didn't have the funds to be able to pay for a lot of things I wanted to pay for, I would do manifestation techniques, and I would ask open-ended questions about, what would it take for things to come from unexpected sources, etc. And the next thing you know, it was like I would have thousands of dollars come from here, and then all of a sudden I would have this refund here, and then this would come forward, and that would happen, and then I would have this amount of funds that were amassed where I could then say, oh, well, now there's this, like, even to be in Vision Lock County's, premium coaching, it's like, those $2,500. And I was like, oh, I just manifested that 2 months ago. Boom, paid, boom, boom, boom. And then you get this, like, feeling about it. But again, that's that gamification part about it, and it might sound silly, but for me to get into that feeling, you have to feel what it will feel like to have that. And so I would literally play, like, online slot machine games like Wizard of Oz or different things like that, where we get these ginormous jackpots where it says, ding, 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 you just won $75 million. And I'm standing in my living room and I'm jumping around going like, yes, I just won $75 million. But I'm trying to figure out energetically, how does that feel in my body? Because we have a sacred yes, and we have a sacred no. And I think any person has to figure out where that resides in their body, because people talk about hunches. They talk the hair, on the back of their neck standing up. They talk about, the butterflies in your stomach. Those are all things that are physical manifestations that tell you, yes, this is a good idea, or no, it's not. And so when you tap into that, like I know for me, when I think of the sacred yes, it's in my heart. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to go for it. But then my no is in my stomach, like no. And I know you're a former professional athlete. That's like my sweet spot. That's like one of my favorite people to work with. I've worked with elite athletes for, I don't know, like the last 10, 15 years. And because of the amount of discipline and determination, they have an instinct too that's also physical. That's their intuition as well, that they pair with the mental intuition. And from there, it's like, I've watched dream things manifest for them because of the fact that they have a specific lane that they run it and that other people don't understand. So that's where it's, to me, it's so fun to be able to figure that out, of where it's like, hey, you know what it feels like in your body? I mean, when you're an athlete, you have certain things where they just become rote repetition because you have that muscle memory and you know exactly how to do that. I did, when I was younger, I was on the way to doing professional ice skating. And unfortunately, I had an accident that took me out from that. But it's like, I knew how to do my backwards crossovers. And I loved the wind in my hair when I was doing the backwards crossovers and the camel spins and all the different fun things that I was doing. But it's like your body just puts itself into that mode. And the intuition can turn into the same thing, of where it's like you just, yep, I got it. Yep, that's a no. No, that's a no. That's a yes. That's a no. Tuning into your own feelings in your body as to how those all get to congruent alignment.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense. Like you said, being an athlete, we do something. It's funny. I was having a conversation with someone right before this, talking about muscle memory and how, even though I'm 46, if something drops, I instinctively reach out to get it, because as a volleyball player, we had to create quick twitch muscle reaction, meaning our arms go out as fast as they can if a ball's coming. So there's things that I'll just do instinctually that just come natural. And like you said, it makes very sense, because when it comes to like leadership and teamwork and things like that, I will follow my intuition because I spent so many years doing it. Yes. It feels right. And when it feels wrong, it really feels wrong. Like I can be like, that feels really wrong. Like, no. And sometimes I can't even explain it. I'll be like, I can just tell, like, this isn't right. And it's helped me a lot in business. I did have to learn to follow my intuition, because sometimes I would listen to everyone else and then I'd be like, okay, well, they have a lot more experience than me, so I should listen to them. And then I would be like, why didn't I listen to myself? Like, how did that happen? So I make a joke a lot of times with my husband, like, every time I don't listen to my intuition, it ends up wrong. Like, I should have listened to it. So I think that's so important, especially with women. I mean, I'm a woman, so I can't obviously speak for men and how their intuition works, but I found that a lot of times women do underestimate the power of their intuition and trusting it, and we all make mistakes. I always tell them, like, hey, we're going to make a mistake. That's just part of like life. You have to let that go, but don't stop trusting what you really know is truth. And so I think that's so great. Well, I want to touch on a few other things that are currently happening before we have to end this podcast. Obviously, you're going to be at the Women Gone Wild book signing, which will be 10-1, right? Is it 10-1? 10-1 on June 17th at Barnes & Noble in Huntington Beach. And we've got that running across the screen. And you guys are going to do a panel as well, I believe at 11 o'clock, where people will get to ask you guys questions, which will be really great. So for those of people wanting to come and do that, I think they can get pictures with you guys as well. That's going to be happening. And then we're going to have the event that night from 3 to 9, where you, along with many other women, are going to be speaking about wealth, intuition, leadership, and diversity. And then we'll have a concert with Jessica Muse. So, people who, I don't want you to give away what you're going to talk about at the event, but maybe you can give us like one little teaser about if someone's coming or thinking about coming, a tip or something they might get from you.
Well, I think I was kind of just thinking about in the sense of where it's like, I think in this day and age, we are so accustomed to the phishing, the scammers, the catfishes, the fraudsters, all these things that are basically there to trick you. And so from that perspective, and I know you have a whole concept about authentically you, and I like to focus on that as well, but it's like being able to navigate that energy as to whether or not you really are, whether or not what you're actually going for is real or not, because there's a lot of people that are not honest. I mean, let's just be completely, that's just the truth. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who purport themselves to be a particular type of people. I mean, even in my 3-year journey, I've met some people that I will never do business with ever again too, because I found out exactly what it was, and no thank you. But still, it's having that opportunity to be able to navigate it through that. And what you just said was really an important thing about the fact that you felt like all these other people had experienced more than you too. And especially as a professional athlete, you have managers, you have coaches, you have agents, you have all these different people that you're paying to be able to be there on your behalf. But as a result, as oftentimes as the talent, you're not given the autonomy to be able to make those decisions for yourself because people get traded or they're drafted, all those different kinds of things. So that's a really important space to be in also for as a woman to be able to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm taking a step back. I need a moment for this. No, I'm not signing this, et cetera, et cetera. So it's still, even though you are the talent, you're also still the client and allowing that autonomy to be able to be, let me think about it, et cetera, because a lot of times you're absolutely right. And especially as women, not even just men, we give our power away. We give our power away to other people that we think know better, and think stay in that like autonomy and sense of their. I mean, it's they call that sovereignty. Personal sovereignty. When you stay in that personal sovereignty and that congruency, it's like you can navigate in a different way. And the dog duty that you see in the sidewalk, you'll just walk around it because you're like, yeah, I see it. I don't need to step in it anymore.
Yeah, that's great. It's funny you said giving away your power. In my book, then power, the O stands for owning your own power. And so as you're saying that, it's really true that a lot of times we give away our power and we really need to own it. And so I think that's really impactful. And I'm so excited for you to be there. Now, I know you have a few other events coming up that I want to make sure we highlight before we get off. Is it June 18th?
Yeah,
we have our LA Leadership, or it's LA Tribune Leadership Summit. And
yes.
Can anyone come to that, or is it?
Yeah. You can log on online. If you just click in that, there'll be it's free to come on. And they're gonna have Mark Victor Hansen. It's from the 16th through the 18th, but because I'm doing the event on the 17th, my speaking engagement is at 1:00 on Sunday, the 18th. But it's 3 days of jam-packed, filled with like really amazing people, top names in personal growth and development. And then the week after that, I'll be at Jim Lute's Penthouse Mastermind from the 24th to the 25th, which is going to be amazing to hear all about the power of the subconscious. And I'll be speaking about, I'm going to be going more in depth with my speaking engagement there about the science of signs and how you can literally track the signs and synchronicities. And you don't have to be a spiritual or religious person to be able to do that at all. But I've taught people to almost figure out like a language that the universe, the quantum field is teaching you at all times. But if you tune into it, it's gold. It just literally, it becomes like a GPS for your life.
I love it. Well, if you are driving right now and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't get those links, don't worry. You just go hit our links on Facebook, Twitter, anywhere that podcast run, this will be running, and we will have in the link section all the links so you can get to Barbie. Of course, you guys can always message me and I will directly connect you. But thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing a little bit about what you do. I hope those of you listening will grab the Wild book. I know we have some new ones coming out as well soon. And then also visit our event and see how you can get involved in the Wild universe, in the She Talks world. We're coming together to make a huge difference. So as I always say, live, love, laugh, and always be your authentic.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Lead and Empower Her with your host, Dr. Julie Ducharme. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.